Hey guys, in this video we're going to look at the #1 error that guitar pedal builders make. Now, I've had a lot of experience with this. Obviously, I've helped a lot of people get their effects working, and this is by far the most common error that guitar pedal builders make. And the word error isn't probably the most accurate thing to say, but it is a step that you should do, because if you don't do it, it makes your life miserable. So let's just break this up into sections, because the video is intended for new guitar pedal builders. It'll be the most helpful for them. So let me just try and break this down. So there's two main steps when you build a guitar pedal. You have your PCB build. So at this point you've installed everything onto the PCB, and the effect is a complete working effect at this point. That's step one. Step two is to put it inside the enclosure, wire it up to the foot switch. It's what we call off-board wiring. You're doing all the off-board wiring, and you're connecting this into a enclosure with all the hardware. At the end of step one, there is a very important thing that you need to do, and that is to verify that this effect is working correctly. The reason is, because you've done so much soldering, you've soldered all those little points onto the PCB, it's probably more likely that you're going to have a problem at this point. And it's at this point that you need to double check to make sure that the effect works correctly. If you put the PCB inside an enclosure, you're only going to be adding complexity to a problem that you've had at the beginning. So it's good to nut out if there's a problem at this point. It's easier, and it'll make your life easier once you hook it up inside an enclosure, because you'll have a fair degree of certainty that the PCB works, so that you know if there's a problem at this point that it's probably something to do with the off-board wiring. I'd say probably 95% of the time, once you've wired it up inside an enclosure, if you've already tested the PCB, 95% it'll be an off-board wiring problem. There is the small chance that it can still be the PCB, but you're basically ruling it out in almost its entirety. So you need to test it before you put it inside an enclosure, and like I said, I've had a lot of experience with this, and I've seen guitar pedal builders, new guitar pedal builders, rush ahead and just put it straight inside the enclosure. And one of the first questions that I ask when someone comes to me for help with this is, did you test it before you put it inside the enclosure? And it's so often that they don't. And as I said, it's a problem, because then we don't know, is it an off-board wiring problem? Is it a problem with the PCB? There's a lot of question marks. Testing the PCB is not that difficult either. It's a pretty quick test. You will only need one thing. I mean, you could do it without these, but I wouldn't recommend it. Is these crocodile alligator clips, and I'm actually going to put these on the store, because as in the end clip part, not the actual wire, but the end clip part, because I think it's a good idea to have them readily available for guitar pedal builders, so that they can get them. If they buy a kit, they can buy some alligator clips, and they can do the test as well, because it's critically important, really. So you just need some of those. Probably I think about 5 or 6 should cover it for the connections that you need. And then you're just going to hook it up to these wires, just temporarily hook it up to your amp. You'll need 2 mono jacks and a power source, so a battery or a DC jack, which you'll probably get anyway. If you buy a kit, you would probably buy the DC jack anyway, because you'll need it at some point. So you'll have that, and you'll have the mono jacks as well, or a stereo and a mono. You can use stereo as well. It doesn't have to be a mono jack. And then you're going to hook it up like this. Now, this diagram is available on my web store. Go to the 7-Minute Fuzz 7-Minute Fuzz project page, product page, and then if you go down, you'll see the build doc just above where the videos are. And I'll probably should put some sort of overlay footage for that, just so you can see what I'm talking about. And then scroll down to I think it's the 7th page. Yeah, it's the 7th page, and you'll find this. print this off and hook it up the way it says on this diagram. Sorry, it's black and white, so it's a little bit harder to understand what's going on, but the project file on the web store is in color. Hook that up to your guitar amp and test it. Keep the guitar amp volume incredibly low. Make sure it's only just audible. You know, you don't want to have the guitar amp cranked in case you have a problem with the actual effect. Something simple like a boost or whatever is probably not going to be that much of a problem, but they can be very loud. If you get something like a delay and it's feeding back, it can get incredibly loud, like deafeningly loud, so just be careful with that. So you've tested your PCB and you're confident that it works. In fact, I mean, if you're new to guitar pedal building, you could just leave it connected for a few days, go and play it every now and then, and just make absolutely sure that there's no intermittent problems, everything's working properly, and there's no loose connections anywhere. And speaking of loose connections, just make sure those crocodile clips are connected properly to the wire as well. Otherwise they won't work properly. So a good idea is to actually just fold down the wire over the top of the insulating material and then clip it on like that. It just gets a bit more of a more solid connection, and that's it. And so once you've got that tested and verified, and you know for sure that it's working properly, install it into the enclosure. And so if there's a problem with the guitar pedal, you'll know that it's 95% chance it's not the PCB. It's something you've done on during the offboard wiring phase, and you can check your offboard wiring for any errors. So it breaks it up into two nice chunks. You do the first part and the second part. You get the PCB working, and then you go on to the offboard wiring, the offboard wiring phase. So I hope that helps, and I've emphasized the critical importance of testing the PCB before you put it inside the enclosure. Like I've said, I've had so many people build guitar pedals that just rush ahead and they don't test the PCB, and then they end up in all sorts of strife later on because they don't know whether the PCB works or not. And then they have to start hacking the wires to pull it out, and it just becomes a bit of a mess. So just test it before, just be patient, test it before you put it inside the enclosure. In fact, if you're busting to hear what the effect sounds like, it's better to do the offboard wiring part because you'll get to hear it, you get to have a little preview of what the actual effect sounds like before you put it inside the enclosure, and you know, kind of scratch the itch, so to speak, and then you can move on to actually patiently installing it inside the enclosure. So yeah, I hope that helps, and thanks for watching. And if you're building a guitar pedal, or you're looking to build a guitar pedal, of course, please support our store, DIYguitarpedals.com.au. We appreciate all the support you guys give, and thanks for watching the video. And let me know if you've got any questions. Leave them in the comments below. Try to get back to as many questions as I can through YouTube, and if you've got a question about guitar pedal building, put it below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Cheers.